Hey guys, and welcome to today's podcast. We're going to go over a few things today. I'm not in my car. I'm at home, so I'm doing the podcast at home today. So, first thing I want to go over is I teach guitar, I teach music, I do music lessons, and I hand out flyers to people. I hand them out, put them up on, there's all different kinds of ways we do it. Anyway, it's funny, like I'll talk to someone and I'll go out. I'll go, yeah, oh yeah, here, have my card. So I'll give them my card, and they look at it and they go, oh, no, 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 not for me. No, I don't know how to play. And I find that really funny because the reason why I'm giving them the card is so that they can learn how to play, and they instinctively go, oh no, I don't know how to play, and they're very backed off from it. And I find it really interesting because that's the person I'm looking for. I'm looking for the person who doesn't know how to play, not the person that can play, but the person who doesn't already know how to play. That is actually more important for me because that's my job, is to teach people how to play music. So it's just kind of funny. A lot of people react like that, and I just never really understood why that is. But initial reaction, they say, "Oh no, 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 my friend plays guitar. You should give that to him." Like, I don't want to give it to him. He already plays guitar. Maybe he wants to improve. That's fine. I can do lessons with him, but That's not my intended target. Really, it's for you, the person who doesn't know how to play, or the person who's looking to get better. Maybe your friend is, maybe not. But it's kind of interesting, and people react that way. And I think there's a thing, there's this thing that's been going around for a long time, where people talk about having a natural ability to play music. Well, I don't have a natural ability to play music. Yeah, it's not really me. I don't have it. It's not in my genes. Or then you have some people say, yeah, he's gifted. He was born that way. He has that natural talent. And yeah, some people do have a better aptitude than others. That's a fact. That's not deniable. But there is no such thing as natural ability to play music. It's just some people just have a higher aptitude than others, and that makes it easier for them to learn things. But to learn music, it's going to be tough for anybody. Everyone who learns is going to have some rough times doing it. It's not it's not like easy for some and hard for everyone else. It's difficult for everybody. It's not it's not one of those things that you have to be a natural at in order to do, which is one of those things that for some reason it's like permeated into the world, into society, into most people's thinking. Now some people just go, yeah, I just got to practice more and that's how I'll get better. But then there's a lot of people that think, well, I tried it, didn't work. I don't have that kind of ability. Well, of course you don't have that ability because you gave up. That's the trick. That's the real secret to being successful, is to never give up. If you want to find success in learning how to play and being a good musician, the first thing is just don't give up. Never give up. Play every single day. Always look for something new to learn and keep pushing to get to a goal. Like, you want to actually make a goal. Like, write down a goal. What do you want to do? Right? Like, you have a goal. My goal is to be able to play as good as Eric Clapton. And you say, great. Why do you want to play as good as him? Oh, well, because I'd like to be able to write my own music and create that kind of sounds and, you know, influence people in that kind of positive way. Touch people like the way he has. There you go. So you have a goal, you have a purpose. That's your fuel to get to that point, to get to that success. Without those two things, you're just kind of strumming, and really you have nothing to do it for. There's no reason, there's no purpose, there's no goal. So that's a reason that people fail. They want this thing, but they don't have a reason why they want it. Like if I asked every single person out there, hey, do you want to be a millionaire? Most people are going to say, oh, yeah, that'd be great. And their reason, well, is so that they have the money because they got money problems. But they don't really have a purpose. Like the goal is to become a multimillionaire. Well, why do you want to be a multimillionaire? Well, I don't know, because, I don't have to worry about paying my bills. But that's not true, because even when you're a multimillionaire, you still have to pay bills. You still got to pay stuff. You're going to have to put out even more money for taxes and stuff like that. So that's not even... But the thing is that they don't really have a purpose for doing it, so they're not going to really go after it anyway. A lot of people, when they don't have a purpose for doing something, they just don't do it. That's the bottom line. So in order to be successful in learning how to play, it's really important to have a goal and write this thing down. Write down your goal. And then write down your purpose. Why do you want to achieve that goal? Why do you want to achieve that goal? Write those things down. And then you look at, okay, where are you? How close are you to achieving this? And just know that every day you pick that instrument up and practice, you're getting closer to that goal. And that purpose is the fuel that's flying you to that goal. So as you go, oh, yeah, I want to be able to do this. This is my goal, to play like that, to do that. And I want to do it so I can do these things. This is why. And that's the thing you're going to run off of. That's the gasoline to the engine. So it's really important that when you're looking for success, that you're using this purpose to fuel it. So, another thing is when you're playing in a band, one thing that we started to do was we started to network with other bands. And, so there was some drawbacks to doing that, but that wasn't, the idea itself is solid and it's a great idea. And I think that bands should network. Absolutely. Everyone's helping each other out. Everyone needs a little bit of help now and then. And bands helping each other out is such a big thing. It really makes a big difference because sometimes one band is kind of down, the other band's doing a little bit better. He goes, hey, I got a show, I'm playing a show. You guys could open for us. And bang, now this band has a show, they have another opportunity, and so forth. The other band does the same thing, back and forth doing those things. They can do collaborations and stuff like that. And so it's like if you have a network of bands that you're working with, it makes it very easy for you to book lots of shows and get your name out there. And you're helping other people do the same thing. You book shows and you're getting those bands to play in those slots for you. It makes a huge difference. So it's like you're helping them out, they're helping you out, and the more bands you can do that with, the more shows you're going to end up playing, which means you even make even more connections to more venues to play at, bigger fan base. You're growing your opportunities by doing that. So networking with bands is a great thing. One thing that when my band did that, one of the problems we had was a feud over girls. Now, I wasn't involved in this feud personally, but of course, I had to stand by my band's side on this whole thing. But basically, a guy in my band dated this girl, then they broke up, and the guy in the other band that we were networking with started going out with that girl. And of course, we're dealing with people's emotions and stuff like that, and so this guy has gotten into a big tiff about it. And that ended the networking between the bands. I mean, me personally, I'd be like, yeah, whatever about it. We're not together anymore, and that's that. But I understand the upset. You had this girl, you're going out with her, you invested emotion and time into this relationship, and it didn't work out for whatever reason. Of course, you're still going to hold something there afterwards, and then someone that you consider a very good friend of yours starts dating her, I can see why you would be upset. So I'm not going to really argue at that point. But one thing I would say is no matter what is going on, always look at like your band's success is more important than your feelings over something like that, over like an ex or whatever it is, like so there was another thing that happened. Someone had sold me a guitar, and super cheap too. So that's why I bought it. I was like, oh yeah, wow, that'd be great. And turns out this guitar was owned by one of the other guitar players in the other band that we were networking in. So to me, I had bought this guitar. I'm like, it's mine. And the guy wasn't necessarily mad at me. He was mad at the person that sold it to me. But the thing was that it did create a little bit of tension. But the guy never really held it against me because he knew from my end, I didn't know it was his, and he knew that. So he wasn't necessarily mad at me, but he wanted his guitar back because he had loaned it to the guy, let the person borrow it, and then the person ended up selling it to me. There's a whole other story on that, which I don't know too much about, but I do know that, years later, I ran into this guy again, and he goes, "Do you still have my guitar?" I'm like, "I still have it, yeah." He's like, "Oh, dude, that'd be so great if I could see it again, or start playing it." And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I might bring it over or something one day. Yeah, you could play with it. It's still my guitar, though. At that point, I mean, I would have worked something out with the guy, just to give him back his guitar. If all three of us worked something out, I wouldn't have mind giving it back, but." He just wanted me to hand it over after I spent all this money on it. I mean, it wasn't a lot of money. I don't remember how much it was. I just remember at the time it was cheap. But I don't remember how much it was. But it was at least significant enough where I was like, I'm not going to just give it back to you. I did put out money. If you could work something out with him where he gives me the money back, I'll give you the guitar. That would be fine. But he just wanted me to give it to him. Like, no, I'm not. We could work something out. And I'd be willing to work something out with him, but he didn't want to. He just wanted it back, but he didn't really ever push it either. He wanted it, but it'd been so long at that point that it didn't matter. So some of those are the things that you don't want to get into it with when you're networking with bands. Another thing was that networking with a band. There's certain things you don't want to bring into these networks, like drugs. That's a big thing. So some bands you get these guys in bands that are heavily into drugs, drinking, partying, and you try to start networking with other bands, you find that some of these guys are not really into that stuff. And then you find some guys who are like totally opposed to it. So you're like, well, I guess you can't network with those guys because, yeah. So, you do want to also pick who you're going to get involved with. Like me personally, I'd rather not get involved with guys who are drinking, doing drugs, stuff like that. I don't really want to network with someone like that because that could end in all kinds of craziness. Like I was networking with a band. Now this is kind of a little off of that because my band nor the other band were either involved in this, but we just happened to be the bands playing the show that night at this club. So we're playing at this big club, and a lot of shows are played at this club all the time. So this is not a strange or unusual thing to have drug use going on, underage drinking going on in this club, and the DEA raided the club that night that our band played and this other band that we were networking with played. And we all thought it was a joke, We didn't think it was serious at first because my band and that band were both known for doing some random crazy stuff on stage, where we would not even tell half the other bandmates what was going on. It was just like, hey, we're gonna do this. Yeah, okay. Make sure they don't know. Okay. And then, so these guys come out with guns and flashlights, and we're just kind of like, whatever. And then they're like, nope, they cut the power. They're like, got their guns out. They're like, put your hands up. We're like, oh, this is real. Okay. So, wow, we're getting raided. So, now, in that kind of situation, if this drug use was going on, underage drinking going on, we would have had some real issues. Fortunately, we weren't really doing any of that, so it just ended with everyone just going home. So the show just got cut off by these guys, and that was that. It was over. So it was unfortunate circumstances, but it could have been much worse if we were involved doing drugs and underage drinking. At the time, I was 17, so if I was drinking and caught drinking then, I would have gotten in trouble because I was underage. So, but none of that happened actually, so we were fine. And, so personally, I wouldn't want to get involved with people who are using drugs or drinking when networking with other bands. So you definitely want to pick carefully what band you are networking with. You do want to network with bands that do draw a good crowd, but you also want to make sure that you're being fair. You want to have a band that does draw a good crowd or could potentially draw a good crowd, and you want to hook up with bands that are similar in style to what you're doing. So one of the other mistakes that we made, we tried to network with bands that were very different from our style of music. And one thing is that some of these bands were like, no, we're not gonna, and they knew, they understood, and we were just like, come on, we're just trying to network with whoever, and they weren't into that. They were smart about it, and they're like, no, we're kind of like a classic rock bluesy type thing. You guys are like some new type of heavy metal stuff. It wouldn't work. Your fans, our fans, they just don't. It just doesn't work. So, which makes sense. So you also want to pick bands that are at least similar in some regard to what your band is like, and that's going to make a big difference also. So now another thing is we're talking about is like when you're playing in a band, you can be if you listen to bands, this is a big complaint about bands that people make, is that, oh, they changed, they sound so different now. I like their older stuff better. And people always wonder why that happens with bands, and there's a lot of reasons why that happens, which we're going to go over in a few minutes. Okay, so welcome back. So we're talking about bands and how they change over time. And so, that's a complaint with a lot of fans, and some fans like it. Like if you look at, bands. There's so many bands you can think of. Like you go, oh yeah, I don't like I don't like their new stuff. I like their old stuff. And yeah, initially when you get interested in a band, it's the music that you're hearing at first that you really like, and that's what makes you interested in the band. And when they start doing things that are different than that, it can definitely let people down, without a doubt. But you have to think, these are people, these are humans, and people tend to lose interest in doing the same old thing over and over again. Like for instance, Metallica, they played these really fast, heavy songs, and they did that for a decade, and then after about 15 years, they're like, we're going to play heavy stuff, but we're going to groove, we're going to change it up a little bit. And they're getting bored. It's like you can't just do the same old thing over and over again. It just goes stale after a while, and you kind of lose inspiration. It's like what I was saying earlier about having a goal and then a purpose to fuel that goal. Well, they probably achieved a purpose that they had, and they said, oh, we did it, we got there. And now it was time to find a new goal, a new purpose, do something different, spice things up a little bit. When you listen to the Load album, Kirk Hammett is playing slide guitar in the solo. And that's that was never done before in any Metallica record, and I I can't even imagine. I can't even think of how many Metallica songs or even heavy metal songs, period, have a slide guitar solo on them. So it was definitely something unique and interesting, and there was just them doing stuff, and I would say he did a really good job in that solo. I know some people are critics of his lead guitar playing, but you can't deny that that was a pretty good solo on a slide guitar. I haven't, I still haven't done one yet. It's been a long time. I own a slide. I play slide guitar, but I've never done a guitar solo using my slide. So, kudos to him for doing that and putting it on a record, no less. That's pretty ballsy. But they definitely got a lot of criticism for those albums, the Load and Reload albums, and whether it doesn't matter if you like it or not. That's not the point. The point is that for them, it was what they needed to do at that time. It was the records that they wanted to create, and that's all that's really important. There's going to be people out there that like it. There's going to be the diehard fans that just going to listen to it and go, yeah, that was a great album. Those are great records. And then you're going to get the guys that are, I guess, the elitists. Like, no, you changed your sound. It's no good anymore. And that's fine as well, because those are the people, they invested their energy and time into listening to this band sound like this, and now they're sounding like that. You go, okay, well, they lost it. Forget it. I'll move on. So it doesn't matter. And then you get people who don't like their older stuff and go, hey, I like what they're doing now. They changed for the better. So you're gonna get all three of those types of people. So, but the reason why they're doing that is because they're musicians. Musicians grow. The whole thing about musicians is that they're looking to gain new abilities. They want to try out new sounds. They're artists. Musicians are really artists. We're artists of sound. And you have to take into account that if you're always painting in blue, you're going to get bored with blue after a while. You're going to want to spice it up. Throw some red in there. Throw some yellow in there, some green. You just got to change it up. Black, white, whatever. If you're doing oil paintings all the time, maybe you're going to try something different. But that's the thing here, is doing that, is changing these things up. And they're also, I want to try something different. I want to gain a new ability. I want to have this ability that I didn't have before. And whether they're 20 when they do it, or they're 40 when they do it, or 35 when they do it, or 60, it's going to come at whatever point it's going to be best for them. And gaining new abilities is what every musician really strives towards. Stepping it up. I want to do more. I want to do something different. I want to see where I can take this. Maybe I can do something new. Maybe I can create a new sound. Maybe I can do something no one's ever thought of doing before. And while nowadays that seems almost virtually impossible, there's always going to be something new. There's always going to be something different that no one's ever heard before. And it's just, that will never ever change, because there's always going to be someone taking a style or a few styles and changing them or mixing them together, creating something different with that, and then playing around with those things. Plus the fact that there is so much untapped stuff out there. If you listen to pop music nowadays, pop music is relatively simple, and it uses just a basic few notes from a major scale or a minor scale, and that's it. But if you take into account all the different types of scales, all the different types of modes, and the fact that they're virtually untouched by pop music, not to say that they don't use it. You do find it every once in a while. I know, there's definitely some rap artists or hip hop artists or some pop songs even that will use like a mode in their melody. Now, whether or not the artist knows it or not, it's happening. They like it. It sounds good to them. Fine. But outside of those small incidents, it's generally either a simple major or minor scale being used in those songs. And we're not talking even that far out of the scale. We're not doing anything too crazy. And this has been going on with all these artists for such a long time. You'd think that they'd run out of combinations for these like 3 or 4 notes that they're playing, and they don't run out. So, but at some point, even they want to do something different. They want to change it up. We got to create something new. We want to do something different. And they'll just come up with new beats or new sounds to put into what they're doing. You know, that's, as musicians, we're just going to grow, look for new abilities. And then another thing about these new abilities is then you want to see how far you can take it. So you learn something new. Like if a guy is learning about doing sweep picking on the guitar, at first he's just trying to get it down. Maybe he just wants to do it for a song or something. He's like, I'm just going to practice this for this song. We're going to get this thing down. And then after a while, he's got it. And then he wants to branch out and do some more with it. He's like, well, what can I do with this thing now? Now I can do this. But how can I use it outside of this song or outside of this pattern that I know? I got to figure out another way around this thing. So now he's going to look at what can he do with it. So now he has this new ability, and he wants to see how far he can take it. And then sometimes, like, what he'll do is he'll take it and put it into something that you don't normally hear that in. Like, like pop music, for example. You're not going to hear sweeping arpeggio guitar solos in pop music. You're not. But if you start hearing that, the credit goes to me because I'm talking about it right now, and it hasn't been done yet. I mean, maybe if you look back in the 80s with some Michael Jackson songs and Van Halen doing some stuff, but that is pop music of yesteryear. You don't hear pop music like that anymore. And that's when pop music was much different than what it is today. You know, there was a lot more involved in it, a lot more detail in the songwriting, and it was more complex, and there was things thought out, and there was real instruments, a lot of instruments in there. But I mean, nowadays you have some instruments, but there's a lot of programmed computer stuff. And not to knock it, because I'll use it. I've used it tons of times for all different types of recordings I've done, and it does help you get the sounds you want to get without having to go and buy these rare, expensive instruments or hiring an entire orchestra. So there are pluses to it, but it does take away from that point of being a musician and trying to expand your abilities. But you will get somebody out there who's going to try to do stuff like that, and it's going to create something different. It's going to create something new, something that's never been heard before, and that's going to be pretty awesome to hear. So look forward to hearing that. So, and I think that's about it for today. So thanks for listening, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.